Hello and welcome back to the workshop. I was recently chatting to Brent from Adventure Time RC when he asked me whether I would like to be part of an international project that he was putting together. He asked whether I'd like to take part in a Rat Fink project. I felt very flattered and immediately said yes before scampering off to look up Rat Fink. According to Wikipedia, Rat Fink is one of several hot rod characters created by artist Ed Big Daddy Roth, one of the originators of custom culture of automobile enthusiasts. It says that Roth conceived Rat Fink as an anti-hero to Mickey Mouse. Rat Fink is usually portrayed as either green or grey in colour, comically grotesque and depraved looking, with bulging bloodshot eyes, an oversized mouth and wearing red overalls. He's often seen driving cars or motorcycles. He sounds like someone I could hang out with. Brent explained that he would be printing Rat Fink figurines and sending them to different YouTubers all over the world to use as they saw fit in some sort of video or diorama. I settled down and waited for mine. It turned up the other day. It was accompanied by a goodie bag containing a £50 flour sack, a medallion that says Adventure Time RC, a sticker, a 3D printed cordless drill, a Coke can and a couple of bottles. All things that I'll be using in the future. And here is Rat Fink himself. Sadly, he had quite a tough time in transit, but I'm sure with enough epoxy I can get him back into one piece. Firstly then, I'll get him reassembled and painted, and then think about what we're going to do with him. As this Fink arrived with no legs and feet attached to him, I've cut off and saved his feet, and I've decided to model him in a driving position. So he did have his hands behind his back. I've kept his upper arms, but removed the hands that were behind his back. You can see the filler. You can also see where I've cut off his legs. And these bits of wire are armatures where I'm going to form new arms and legs for him. I've used 2-part epoxy paste to form arms and legs for him around those wire armatures. I've had to make his legs a bit longer than they appear in all the cartoons because they need to reach the floor to operate the pedals. Also, I want them to help hold him in the seat as they're holding him on the running board of this rat rod right now. You'll notice that he has no hands, but I have a plan for that. Recently, my internet connection broke down and a guy came round and replaced the router. This is the top from the old router. This router's uploaded many of my YouTube videos. And as you can see, I've drawn a pair of hands onto it. It's made of ABS and it's quite thick. I'm going to cut them out with a Dremel and do my best to shape them. And here they are. I'm hoping to heat them and curl the fingers around so that they'll appear to be gripping a steering wheel. Like this. And here are his hands once I've painted them and glued them on. Let's have a look at him. When we look at him from behind, we can see that his arms, which were previously behind his back, have gone, and that he's now seated in a position which will let him drive a car. This is the vehicle I had in mind for him. It's an open-topped Ford Model Y. I've noticed that in the original cartoons he often appears rather too big for the vehicle he's driving. So I think this 1/12 scale Model Y body should be a good choice. And as for a chassis to fit it on, what I've done is I've got this. It's a WPL D12 Suzuki Carry, and the wheelbase is just about right. This little Suzuki is rear-wheel drive, leaf sprung at the rear and independent at the front. It even has a fairly scale transmission setup. All in all, it should be pretty good. Let's get the body off it. There we go. With some slightly bigger truck rear wheels I think that's starting to look like a pretty useful candidate as a hot rod chassis. I'd better get to work on cutting out that Ford Model Y body. There. That looks reasonably promising. In fact, I only had to shorten the body by 15mm to get the wheelbase correct. I've done some stuff to the chassis as well. I painted the sump and gearbox silver and the chassis itself black. Then I cut short the old battery mounting tray because it stuck out too far backwards and fouled the body, which meant I had to relocate the battery, so I've turned the rest of the thick ABS top of my old router into a battery box. And that means that I'm going to have to make the hood openable. There. That was quite straightforward. I've added a piece of wood across the back to receive screws for mounting the body, and I've identified a place amidships which I think will make a good potential body mount. I should be able to take advantage of these and put something across here. And then I'll just need to come up with something at the front. I have had to slim down my battery tray towards the front to get the body to sit low enough. By bolting a piece of aluminium across those two mounting points provided on the chassis with a piece of wood glued to the end, I've been able to put a screw in and mount the body amidships. At the rear, a pair of screws go into the piece of wood I glued across earlier. I've painted the body in a colour called lemon yellow. Also, I've made a grille from aluminium, and over on the bench we have a simple styrene dash and a pair of headlamps cut from the ends of 12-gram CO2 cartridges. This pen no longer works. I'm going to cut about that much off one end and use it to make a supercharger intake scoop. Here's an example of the sort of thing that happens when you're building a one-off RC. Since I fitted the headlights, the hood won't shut properly. It's nothing a Dremel won't sort out. Now that I've made it, I have a suspicion that my supercharger intake scoop is a little on the small side. I'm still in two minds as to whether to use it. Here we have some leftover styrofoam packaging, which I'm hoping will form a seat for Rat Fink. Something along these lines. Here we have some rear lights and a license plate. Rat Fink has a steering wheel and he also has a supercharger. I want to see him drive. Rat Fink, don't do that! Come on, let's go drive the car. That worked quite well. I must say that the WPL D12 did turn out to be a useful chassis to base this build on, and I'd very much like to thank Brent for inviting me to take part in this project. I've never tried to build a cartoon style car before, and I hope I did a reasonable job. I've very much enjoyed taking part in this project, and I hope you've enjoyed watching the video. Until next time.